An old assembly plant employee and trusted mechanic told me a phrase I never forgot: cars don't gulp gas. You force them to. He said it with one of those smiles that hide years of workshop experience and practical wisdom. He explained that most cars don't use more fuel because they are old, or because the engine isn't performing anymore, but because their owners make the same mistakes over and over. Small oversights, everyday gestures, habits that seem innocent but turn any car into a heavy drinker of fuel. And the worst part, they are so simple to avoid that when you learn them, you wonder why no one told you before. Today I'm going to show you the 15 habits that make your car consume fuel like a truck, and most importantly, how to correct them so it performs like it did on day one. You don't need to be a mechanic or spend a fortune. Just pay attention to those details that separate an average driver from someone who understands their machine. So buckle up, because if your car is emptying your wallet, here you will discover why. And every item on this list is important because you're probably guilty of at least one of them. Let's begin. Number 15. Not gapping the spark plugs correctly. This is one of those errors so simple it's hard to believe it causes so much damage. Spark plugs are the heart of combustion. They generate the spark that ignites the air-fuel mixture inside the engine. But if the distance between their electrodes, that small gap where the spark jumps, isn't correct, the combustion becomes incomplete. In other words, some fuel enters but doesn't burn completely. Result: higher consumption, less power, and an engine that seems to ask you for gas like someone asking for coffee every half hour. Many mechanics change spark plugs by eye, or simply install new ones without gapping them. Serious mistake. Every engine has a specific gap that varies by manufacturer and spark plug type. If the gap is too small, the spark will be weak. If it's too large, the spark will be inefficient and energy will be lost. The ideal is to use a spark plug gap tool, a tool so cheap it costs less than a coffee, but can save you entire liters of fuel over the month. And yes, gapping isn't for geniuses. Just gently adjust the electrode until you reach the exact measurement indicated in the vehicle's manual. A tiny detail, but with a huge impact. The engine will start faster, the idle will be more stable, and you'll notice the car accelerates more smoothly. And if you're one of those who believe it doesn't make a difference, try filling the tank before and after gapping them. You'll think the gas pump suddenly became generous. Number 14. Driving with underinflated tires. This point seems obvious, but few drivers take it seriously. An underinflated tire not only wears out faster, it also increases friction against the asphalt. And that friction is a direct enemy of fuel efficiency. According to studies by manufacturers like Michelin and Bridgestone, driving with tires just half a pound per square inch below the recommended pressure can increase consumption by up to 10%. That means if you fill your tank every week, you're giving away 1 out of every 10 fill-ups just out of laziness to check the air. But the problem doesn't end there. Lack of pressure also affects steering, worsens braking, and strains the suspension. It's like walking with your shoes untied. At first nothing happens, but you end up with blisters. The funny thing is that many motorists only check the pressure when the tire looks low, and that's a classic mistake. Tires can lose air slowly, even without visible leaks. That's why experts recommend checking them every 2 weeks, or at least once a month, with a reliable pressure gauge, not those old gauges at some gas stations that look like relics from the 90s. A trick few mention: always check the pressure when the tires are cold, before driving. The heat from friction temporarily increases the pressure and can give you a false reading. Keeping the pressure just right not only extends the life of the tires, it also lightens the load on the engine. And if you're still not convinced, think of it as simply filling up 1 less time per month. Who wouldn't want that? Oh, and don't forget to check the spare tire's pressure too. Because Murphy has a sense of humor. The day you need it, it will be emptier than your tank after a traffic jam. Number 13. Keeping the air filter dirty. Here enters one of the most common and, at the same time, most invisible sins. The air filter is what allows the engine to breathe without swallowing dust, sand, or insects. If it's clean, air enters easily, the mixture with fuel is perfect, and combustion happens efficiently. But when the filter gets clogged with dirt, the engine starts to suffocate. And a suffocating engine burns more gasoline to compensate for the lack of oxygen, just like you would if you tried to run with a scarf over your face. The problem is that many drivers check the filter once a year, or never. Some even think it's enough to shake it out or blow on it a little, as if that were a deep clean. It's not. Once the filter's pores are saturated, the airflow is reduced and the MAF sensor, which measures the amount of air entering the engine, starts giving false readings. The result? The car thinks it needs more fuel than it actually does, and starts injecting more. It's that simple. Changing the air filter costs less than half a tank of fuel, and doing it can improve efficiency by up to 15%. Plus, it helps keep the injectors and valves clean. A curious detail. In China, many drivers change the filter every 10,000 kilometers, even if it looks clean. I prefer to spend on clean air than on expensive gasoline, a taxi driver there told me, and I can't blame him. In the West, on the other hand, some only check it when the car is already coughing. When someone says their car uses a lot of gas, ask them when they last changed the air filter. If they answer, "Which filter?" you know where the gas went. Number 12. Using low-quality or adulterated gasoline. The eternal temptation of the cheaper option. We've all passed by that station that promises miracle prices, almost a 2-for-1 on fuel. But what seems like quick savings turns into a slow and painful bill for your engine. Adulterated or low-quality gasoline contains impurities, less octane than declared, and sometimes even water or recycled solvents. Yes, literally liquid garbage. When you fill the tank with that type of fuel, the engine starts working outside its ideal range. Combustion becomes irregular, the pistons vibrate more, the sensors get confused, and the car loses power while gulping more gasoline to try to compensate. It's like giving an athlete a bottle of soda instead of water and telling them, "Run a marathon." The worst part is that the damage isn't immediately noticeable. The effects appear gradually. The idle becomes unstable, consumption rises, the check engine light flashes like a Christmas tree, and before you know it, you have injectors covered in residue and a catalytic converter suffering. The solution? Always get fuel at reliable stations, preferably recognized brands. And if your car is designed for premium gasoline, don't feed it regular. It's not a luxury, it's a mechanical necessity. Also, using a certified cleaning additive once every 2 or 3 months can help remove deposits and keep the system clean. Cheap gasoline? Sometimes, cheap not only ends up being expensive, it also smells bad and leaves black smoke. Number 11. Revving the engine in neutral or when starting cold. This is the classic mistake of the impatient morning people. You get to the car, turn the key, and without thinking, you rev it. As if the engine needed that push to wake up. Colossal error. During the first few seconds after starting, the oil is still cold and hasn't completely circulated through the system. Revving at that moment makes the pistons and valves work without sufficient lubrication, which not only accelerates internal wear but also wastes fuel. Because yes, that roar you like to hear when you rev a cold engine doesn't move the car an inch, but it does burn gas as if it did. And worse yet, if you do this in winter, the damage multiplies. The fuel evaporates poorly, the air-fuel mixture becomes unbalanced, and the engine has to compensate by injecting more. It's as if it's saying, either warm me up properly, or I'll charge you in liters. The correct way is simple. Start the car, let it idle for about 30 seconds, and start gently. You don't need to let it warm up for 5 minutes like in the old days, because modern engines don't require it, but you do need to give the oil time to make its rounds. Your engine isn't a fighting rooster. It doesn't need you to wake it up with shouts. Number 10. Not checking the fuel injection system. Here we enter the territory of invisible problems. The fuel injection system is responsible for spraying the fuel in the exact amount into the engine. But over time, the injectors get dirty, clogged, or simply fall out of calibration. And when that happens, the car starts injecting more fuel than necessary, burning it inefficiently and generating excessive consumption. The problem is that this error doesn't always leave clear signs. There's no smoke, no noise. You just notice that each week the tank empties faster. Some even think that gasoline doesn't go as far as it used to. No, my friend. What isn't going far is your injection system. A professional injector cleaning every 20 or 30,000 kilometers can restore the engine's original precision. You can also use specific additives. Be careful, not those miracle ones that promise to fix everything with one drop, that help keep them clean if you regularly drive in the city, where slow traffic generates more residue. If the idle is irregular, if the car vibrates too much, or if it smells like unburned gasoline, it's almost certain that you have one or more injectors failing. And letting it slide not only increases consumption, It can also damage the catalytic converter, one of the most expensive parts of a modern car. Practical advice: if your car has over 100,000 kilometers and you've never cleaned the injectors, you're probably paying for gas to feed half the engine, and the other half is on vacation. Number 9. Driving with unnecessary load. This is the laziest thief, but also the most constant one. Loading the car with extra weight is like going to the gym with a backpack full of bricks. You get tired faster and for no reason. Every additional kilogram you carry forces the engine to work harder. And that effort translates directly into higher fuel consumption. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, carrying just 100 extra kilos can increase consumption by up to 5%. Now, do the math. Trunks full of tools you never use, boxes, water bottles, clothes, umbrellas, cables, that inflator that hasn't worked since 2015. It all adds up. Even roof racks or bars that you don't remove after a trip increase wind resistance and fuel costs. And you know what the worst part is? Many don't even remember what they're carrying in the back. It's as if the car were also a mobile storage unit. Do a deep clean of the trunk every month. Keep only the essentials: jack, warning triangles, first aid kit, and basic tools. If you have an SUV or pickup, don't fall into the temptation of using it as a rolling warehouse. And if you really need to carry cargo, make sure to distribute the weight correctly. A curious fact: some modern cars have sensors that calculate the load and adjust consumption. But if yours doesn't have it, don't worry. The best sensor is still your common sense. If your car consumes too much, don't blame the engine. Maybe it's your trunk that's on a perpetual diet. And if you thought checking the filter and using good gas was enough, get ready. The next mistakes are the ones that really empty the tank without you noticing. Number 8. Not checking the oxygen sensor. The oxygen sensor is like the engine's nutritionist. It tells it how much air and how much gasoline it needs to maintain a perfect mixture. But when it fails, the car starts eating uncontrollably, as if it were at an all-you-can-eat buffet. This small component is responsible for measuring the exhaust gases and sending data to the computer to adjust the air-fuel mixture. If it's dirty, damaged, or old, the system starts working blind. The result: a mixture too rich in fuel, black smoke, and consumption that skyrockets by up to 30%. Many ignore the sensor because the car still runs, but the reality is that the engine is working with the wrong parameters. And not only does it use more fuel, it also pollutes more and damages the catalytic converter, one of the most expensive parts to replace. The solution is simple: replace it every 100,000 kilometers or sooner if you notice excessive consumption or the check engine light comes on. A new sensor costs little compared to what you could be losing in gasoline. Fun fact: there are drivers who change spark plugs, filters, and even oil 1,000 times, but never the O2 sensor. And then they wonder why the car drinks like an old truck. If any of these points have already made you suspect your own habits, don't worry, we've all done them. But subscribe and leave your like, because the next tips can save you hundreds of dollars a year. Number 7. Driving in low gears out of habit. Are you one of those who drives in second when you could already be in third? Or one of those who feels more in control by keeping the engine roaring high? Well, I'm sorry to tell you, your car is doing unpaid overtime. Constantly driving in low gears increases the engine's revolutions unnecessarily. That means more work, more heat, more wear, and, of course, more consumption. The ironic thing is that many do it thinking the car responds better, when in reality the only thing responding is your tank, which empties faster than your desire to work on a Monday. The golden rule is simple: listen to the engine. If it sounds strained or too high for the speed you're going, change gears. Keep the revolutions in the efficient range, between 2,000 and 3,000 RPM in most cars. By doing that, you not only save fuel, but you also extend the life of your engine and transmission. And if you drive an automatic, remember to use the ECO or normal D mode. Avoid Sport when you don't need it. That mode isn't faster, it's more expensive. A piece of advice from an old mechanic: if your car sounds like it's angry with you, it probably is, and it's showing it by consuming double. Number 6. Not aligning or balancing the car. It may seem like a minor detail, but alignment and balancing have a direct impact on consumption. If the wheels are misaligned, the car doesn't move in a straight line on its own. It drags, fights against itself, and that means the engine must work harder to maintain direction. The result: more friction, more resistance, and yes, more gasoline burned. It's like running with your feet twisted. You can do it, but you get tired twice as fast. A misaligned car also wears out tires unevenly, which further increases consumption and can become dangerous. If you notice the steering wheel vibrates, the car pulls to one side, or the tires squeal for no reason, it's time for a checkup. Get an alignment and balance every 10,000 kilometers or after hitting a strong pothole. It's not a luxury, it's an investment. Because what you spend on that service, you recover in fuel and tire savings. If your car seems to have a mind of its own and pulls to the right when you let go of the wheel, it doesn't have a soul. It needs an alignment urgently. Number 5. Braking and accelerating abruptly. This is the favorite mistake of drivers in a hurry. They accelerate hard to get to the traffic light, and brake suddenly as soon as they see it turn red. The result: skyrocketed consumption, worn-out brakes, and dizzy passengers. Every time you accelerate aggressively, the engine injects large amounts of fuel to generate that immediate response. But since you almost always end up braking shortly after, that energy is wasted. It's like running towards a wall and bragging that you got there fast, right before the impact. Furthermore, constant hard braking raises the temperature of the brakes and reduces their lifespan. And although the damage isn't visible at first, fuel consumption increases noticeably. Driving smoothly, anticipating traffic, can reduce fuel expenditure by up to 15%. A practical tip: imagine you're carrying a full glass of water on the dashboard and you can't spill a single drop. If you can do it without getting wet, you're driving efficiently. And yes, I know, in daily traffic that sounds impossible. But even reducing aggressiveness a little makes a huge difference in the long run. And if you think you know everything already, wait. The next final 4 mistakes are the most common and the most expensive. Number 4. Not checking for leaks or minor drips. A few drops under the car don't seem like a big deal, right? After all, it was probably condensation from the air conditioning. Well, not always. Sometimes it's oil, coolant, or even gasoline slowly evaporating. And here comes the painful fact: 1 drop per second equals several liters lost per month. You are literally watering your money on the ground. Small leaks are treacherous. They not only increase consumption but can also damage components if the oil or coolant level gets too low. Plus, evaporated gasoline generates dangerous vapors and pollutes more than an old engine from the 80s. The solution is simple: visually inspect the ground where you park and the engine bay once a week. If you notice oily stains, traces of green or pink coolant, or a strong fuel smell, don't ignore it. The sooner you check it, the cheaper it will be. And don't fool yourself with the classic excuse, it's just a tiny drop. If you were paid $1 for every drop your car loses, you'd already have enough money to replace the entire brake system. Number 3. Ignoring catalytic converter maintenance. The catalytic converter is the silent guardian of emissions, but also a key player in consumption. When it gets clogged, the engine can't expel gases properly, loses efficiency, and needs more fuel to compensate. It's like trying to breathe with a dust-filled mask. This component can last over 200,000 kilometers, but only if it receives clean gasoline and proper maintenance. Bad spark plugs or a rich mixture cause combustion residues to accumulate and eventually clog it. When that happens, the car loses power, smokes more, and consumption skyrockets. The best way to avoid it is to use quality fuel, check the ignition system, and clean the exhaust from time to time. And if your car already shows a loss of power or the exhaust smell makes you doubt if you're still breathing air, it's time to scan it. Some think a car without a catalytic converter runs faster. And yes, it runs, but straight to the repair shop. Number 2. Driving with an out-of-tune or mistimed engine. This error is more common than it seems and happens due to something as simple as a mistimed timing belt or an unsuitable spark plug. When the spark doesn't coincide with the exact moment of combustion, the engine works out of rhythm. Result: knocking, power loss, and fuel consumption worthy of a plane taking off. An out-of-tune engine burns the mixture too early or too late, causing some of the energy to be wasted as heat instead of movement. It's an invisible error, but it literally devours your gasoline without you noticing. The way to detect it is simple. If the car vibrates, makes detonation sounds, pinging, or knocking, or has trouble maintaining idle, the ignition timing is probably off. Taking it to a shop for a timing check can make the difference between an efficient engine and a compulsive guzzler. As mechanics say, an out-of-tune engine isn't sick, it's disoriented. Number 1. Driving with a cold engine without letting it warm up for a few seconds. And we've reached the worst of them all. This is the habit that destroys engines and empties tanks alike, and the worst part is that almost all of us do it. In the morning, you turn the key, the engine wakes up sleepy, and you, without waiting even 5 seconds, are already putting it in first and rushing off. What you don't know is that in those first few seconds the oil hasn't completely circulated, the temperature is low, and the computer injects more gasoline to compensate. It's like making someone run right after waking up. They breathe poorly, get fatigued, and consume extra energy. During the first 30 seconds, the engine works in enriched mode, injecting more fuel than necessary to stabilize the idle and warm up the system. If you move immediately, that excess mixture doesn't burn completely, is wasted, and in the process, wears out the cylinders and valves. The ideal is to let the engine run for about 30 seconds, or a minute if it's extremely cold, before moving. That time is enough for the oil to reach all the parts and for the mixture to stabilize. You don't need to let it run for 15 minutes, that's not efficient either. It's about balance. And if someone tells you that warming up the car thing is from the 90s, remind them that the laws of physics didn't change with smartphones. Now you know why your car seems to drink gasoline instead of consuming it. It's not the vehicle's fault, but the driver's habits. If you want to really save, subscribe, leave your like, and comment. Which of these mistakes have you made without knowing it? Maybe your story will help others stop filling up the tank every 3 days.